So now I'm going to ask Michael, because Michael is an actor, in case all of you don't know, but you should know by now if you read the background, which is he's a professional actor slash photographer slash videographer, and an owner of a few different businesses. So today we're going to focus more so on just a few different things relative to acting. The first thing I want to ask you, Michael, is we're sadly, especially in New York where we are right now, a lot of actors are forced to do the video auditioning, and this is a pool that nobody's really stepped into before for the most part. I mean, filming at home is one thing, but now it's completely contingent upon being at home.
Yes.
How do you adjust to that? And moreover, how uncomfortable is that for you that you're having to change things so drastically so quickly?
Well, you're really not, because the industry has been headed towards more and more self-tapes by the minute. It's getting kind of, in a way, lazier and more harried at the same time. They want the video, they want it by tomorrow morning at 8, 9 a.m., and it's got to be immediate. You know, all this technology, it's been heading that way. You go into a casting office nowadays, and I'm glad I'm old enough to have caught it the way it used to be. You walk in there, there's photographs and resumes all over the walls. You know, it's just kind of inspiring. Nowadays, you go into a casting office, and people correct me if your experiences are different, any of my fellow actors out there, but I walk in and I think I must have walked into an accounting office. It's just like a bunch of clerks behind computers selecting little thumbnails. You know, there's no, it just seems like less art to it. You know, they're just going by types very quickly. It's almost like a machine. So the fact that because of the virus and all that, we can't go and audition, it's not that different in a lot of. The only difference is now you're submitting with a video a job that you don't even know when or if you'll be able to do it. So it's kind of like getting a nice plum roll and they don't have the funding yet. You know, you get the job and then you're waiting and then it never happens. So we'll see what happens with that. But you know, the actor's job is first and foremost to be offered the role, whether you take it or not, or it happens or not. If you get offered the role, you did your job, and everything that's within your control. So
sure. Now, I imagine there are certain things you bring to the table, and most actors, I would think, part of the purpose of having a live audition is that you can act and speak and do things a wee bit differently by physical presence that you can't during a video. So is that altered at all one way or the other now?
Yes, there's pros and cons. Of course, the pro is you're interacting. You get to be yourself a little bit. You get to just show them who you are. But on the other side, when you're self-taping, you get to perfect it. You don't have to send it out the door. It could be 5 o'clock in the morning, whatever. But you can keep shooting it until, like a little mini movie, until you really have felt the character and you've nailed it and you've absorbed the words, and you know you feel like you've offered something truly unique. When it's live, you may get 2 takes, you may get 3 takes, but they got a lot of people to see, so bam, you're under a lot more pressure, and before you know it, you're back in the hallway waiting for the elevator, and it's all over, and there's no more do-overs. So yeah, it's a trade-off.
Well, and I'll ask you to interject into this a bit, Michael, because as a filmmaker, one of the things that's going through my head is what happens if you come across a filmmaker that really wants to see originality instead of somebody who has cleaned up their audition, so to speak, over and over and over again. Would that make a difference? Do you fear it will make a difference in whether they hire you because they're not getting organic, they're not getting original 100%?
Yes.
If you clean it up.
Well, and it is usually the indie directors or up the scale. Once they go through the initial wave, and it might be the refined or submission, but after that, a good filmmaker, a particular filmmaker, will do more spontaneous requests. They'll want it live. They'll want to see how you take directions on the spot. That's the main thing. I think the best directors, in my opinion anyway, the ones I appreciate the most, even though sometimes it might make you uncomfortable, you want to know what it's like working with them on the spot, giving directions on the fly, and how you react. Can you listen? Can you adapt? That's very important. A lot of actors, in my experience, will deliver one thing and then kind of lock into that, and it's difficult to deviate. To take the real actors, directors might give you something 180 degrees opposite just to see if you can do it. They may not even want that, but they'll just throw it at you and say, "Go, let's see what you got." And that's very liberating to be able to do that, just as an exercise.
Sure. Now, if we have actors, of course, watching this, and of course, somewhere down the line, because we've recorded it, they'll see it. Where do you stand, I should say, meaning, do you have reservations or concerns, or is it hard to get excited or elated even about the prospect of any of these films seeing the light of day this year? Does that in any way say, maybe I want to keep acting over here and maybe work on other projects or other things?
You mean projects that are delayed?
Yes.
I've actually got a couple of things that are halfway done, three-quarters, and they may have just one scene left to do, and you can't do it, so it's not going to get anywhere until it's completely done. But they're taking advantage of the time, and they're getting just that one extra little scene or two that they have to pick up. So it's good. Everybody takes a breath. As the actor, we're used to just doing our job and then just waiting and moving on and not thinking about it too much. You have to throw it away and just move on, mind your business. It's the film that worry if they have everything they need. The only problem, of course, is that they don't, which is looming. I'm waiting for the virus to end, and then I have to shoot a couple of things, one little moment or two little moments, and then you still have to get 100% into that mentality just for one quick little reaction shot. So it's a pain, but especially with the more complex, unpleasant characters, which is I tend to play on occasion.
All the time. He's lying. It's all the time. I hate it. I hate it.
So you have to revisit that, get there, and do it quickly, and then just once more into the breach, get it done, so they can complete and have everything they need. That's the job.
Well, we have this conversation, meaning myself and a good friend who is not you, but another actor. And one of the concerns that he voiced was, are people going to be more engaged in your performances after all of this? Because they'll be like, oh, he managed to do this during the virus. Do you think that the virus will cast a shadow? You know what I mean? You're not going to be a standalone anymore. Now it's going to be about how I did this during the pandemic or how we coped during the virus. You know what I mean? Can you stand alone away from this national emergency, so to speak? Because he's very concerned about making an impact, because this is what everyone's talking about.
You mean a film that addresses?
No, I mean like as a whole. Like, for instance, let's say the virus is still going on a couple months from now and you manage to film something. Are you always going to stay overshadowed by this? That was his concern, was, like, are we relevant?
Are people desensitized?
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's, I mean, during World War II, for instance, musicals were kind of popular and things like that. I mean, sure, they covered the war, but they gave a variety of comedies and all that, because people just can't be inundated with horror all the time. During the Depression, the musical comedy came into its own. We'll see what genre really takes hold for this, since I don't think this is quite over by a long shot. But it might be a good thing, we've been kind of embracing the negative for a long time.
Sure.
Zombies and survival and superheroes fighting evil, and I don't know, maybe something more lighthearted and generally just amusing is down the road. I mean, let's bring the Stooges back. Who are the next Marx Brothers? I wouldn't mind that at all.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Let's stop being so damn serious.
Exactly.
There's still plenty of room for that occasional serial killer.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I know that we're talking about actually videotaping auditions, and I hear other actors talk all the time about the struggles of, believe it or not, they say, I don't know how to do a self-tape. I struggle with doing this at home. I struggle with every part of it, basically. So if somebody is watching this today, what could you recommend to them, outside of taking a crash course? What's one or two of the most important things you do for every video audition?
To fully invest in the character, your scene might be only a minute and a half long, but it's got to be a fully fleshed out performance. If you want to go in there and just sort of read lines and phone it in, that's great. But you know what? Someone else will have done the work, and they will have figured out the ins and outs, the backstory. you may be wrong about, you know, the background or the depth, the 3D version of your character, but the work always shows that you went there and you gave more than they were expecting. You know, I think honestly that's what I believe gets you the part. You don't have to be 100% on the mark. And a lot of times the filmmaker might say, you know, I don't know. You show me. What do you have? You may take it in directions they weren't expecting. Some filmmakers are very precise and they know exactly what they want. But you know what? You show something bold and interesting, and they'll probably invest the time to tell you the tweaks. Do a little this, a little that. I really like what you're doing. This is more exactly what I want. But just go for it, you know. But spend the time on it. Laziness, you know, just reading lines doesn't help. You know, if you're there with the page in your hand and they can see you holding it, looking right at the page, chances are you're probably not doing your work, you know. So there.
That's a good answer.
That's true, though.
Listening, and I'm like, oh shit, he's gonna stop.
Well, you know, in fairness, actors, and you know, sometimes actors get very busy and they throw these things at you and they want it like I said, they want it like by like 9 a.m. and this and that. You don't have time for that.
Sure.
But hopefully you'll have a chance to figure out how to spend a little time with it. Maybe you'll have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, but you know, it's not right. I mean, all this technology, I'm not for it. It has made the industry just as harried, but more neurotic, because they can demand things instantly because the technology says, get it to me right now. But I don't think it's good as far as the work. Once, you know, the thing is, producers, you know, you are expected to audition for the part as fast as possible a lot of the times. But if you get the job, they want you to properly prepare. So it's contradictory, you know?
Sure.
They want you to do your homework, but you can't do your homework in a couple of hours. It's impossible.
Oh, you bet. Now, for recording, do you have specific suggestions as far as camera equipment, background equipment that you use, things that you've utilized that you find proficient?
I just say, you know, without going crazy, just get a couple of good LEDs. You know, there's plenty of tutorials on there with shooting a good 2 or 3 point light setup. You know, just make it look nice. I like to sync my sound because most of the camera microphones are crummy. You can hear the refrigerator humming in the background, whatever. You can hear your landlady vacuuming upstairs, which we had earlier.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, little things like audio. I mean, the technicalities of filmmaking. Audio is neglected a lot, but the difference between hearing all that hissing in the background versus clean, crisp audio, it really does engage. So if you have the time to do a good, proper audio recording, great. It's anything that can increase your chances of getting a little notice, I think, are a good thing. But also, you got a deadline, just get it done sometimes.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Do you find that, I had another actress tell me, of course, that oftentimes most of a video audition for her finds her improving more than following a script or whatever they send you. Do you have that liberty to be able to do that, or do you utilize that often?
You got to be careful, you know. I mean, you know, your David Chases and such, they may not appreciate you taking liberties with their language. I think you have to be careful. Once in a while, I wouldn't overdo it, especially with an established writer. I mean, sometimes you work with, say, you know, somebody who's maybe English is not their primary language, and there might be something that just isn't quite, you know, isn't quite appropriate, wouldn't be said that way. So, you know, feel free then, but you have to respect the author. Yeah, you know, so if you really feel in your gut that you have something particular to offer with an improv, then go for it. But don't be nonchalant and willy-nilly about the writer's work.
Yeah, I mean, may I throw in here?
Please, Mike.
I had this sometimes with video auditions that some people just went, you know, they got 3 lines and they went totally off script. And like, if they do it now for the audition, what will they do on set?
Yeah,
it's a good question.
You know, a little bit of improvising is fun, but it's, you know, sometimes they're like, what? can you really read these 3 lines? These are your lines.
Yes. Would you mind saying some of my script?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. But it's true, though. No, I totally get it.
Well, Michael, would they ever change the end result on you?
Well, I don't even bother, you know.
You know, like so and so dies at the end of the scene. Well, we think he should live.
Oh gosh. Oh my
It
goodness.
wasn't that bad, but you know, but sometimes I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Do you really think you're getting? Sorry, what the heck are you doing?
He said fudge for the
We're
record,
so
folks.
bad.
He said
We
fudge.
allow all this terrible behavior, folks.
Yeah.
Not really, but no. I think that it should be said with talking about auditioning and preparing and putting things together. One thing that most of you don't know that I know remarkably to be true is his ability to effectuate emotion on camera without saying a single word. He does that professionally very well. He does it personally very well. So I think it behooves me to ask the question, if an actor is listening to this, how do you manage to become that Hollywood actor? Because I see Hollywood actors do this all the time. They have to do very little to move someone to the point of tears or laughter or smiling. You do it with such ease and comfort that it's just breathtaking to me. So what's the trick?
Do the work. Do the homework. You know, a perfect example is Marlon Brando spent most of his career crapping on the profession, and he would make fun of it. He would say it's not a proper job for a man and this and that, but he always dazzled us, even in a bad movie, because he always did the work. He was very contradictory in that. He never phoned it in. Sometimes he would do more, or you know, it wouldn't quite work, this and that, but he was always very bold in his choices, I think. Doing the homework, the background, frees you to be natural, to improv, to just go with it, to live it. So yeah, if you're lazy about it, you're just going to get a line reading, and that doesn't cut it. You know, it's not interesting. It's not what people. You owe it to the audience to give them a piece of your heart and your best effort.
Do you think it's okay for an actor to be terrified doing auditions?
Sure, everybody is. You know, like people forget the greats. Laurence Olivier used to vomit regularly. Danny Day-Lewis. That's why he never did theater ever again, as I've read it. After he played Hamlet in his 20s, had a nervous breakdown behind stage. He was so invested in the part, never did stage again. Sir Larry continued to throw up, but continued to do theater. So he was a little tougher. But, the nerves can propel you once you're settled and you have your stage legs. It can propel you in your action and your energy if you can get over that hump, or it can destroy you. You have to use that tension because it's good. It's energy. It means you're alive. You just have to know how to handle it and get over that hump.
And of course, even though he doesn't mention it, I think it should also be mentioned that I think it's all too easy for directors and filmmakers sometimes when they look at certain actors to become typecast, which is what I constantly worry about for him, although he assures me now. You know, he cuts people up, he kills them, he's a Nazi doctor, he's a gangster. I mean, he killed children, but, he's a good guy all the time. So it just kills me. I'm like, it does concern me a bit about that. So I guess the real question behind all of that is, how do you keep yourself fresh and original in and out of audition to prevent that typecasting? Because believe it or not, I do think it can become a hindrance for an actor.
Well, it's one thing to say you're doing too many bad guys. I love the bad guys. They're memorable. But if you're doing the same bad guy over and over again, then that's on you. You have to have the role or the opportunity to bring something unique to the table.
Absolutely.
And then you still get to do the occasional Mr. Nice Guy.
Don't let him fool you, though. As much as he keeps talking about loving the bad guy, it's a completely good guy sitting right here. There's very, very little of his characters in there, except on rare occasions.